the Authentic Advantage, where success gets unfiltered and the real stories come out. I'm your host, Angie Tajweedi, and each week I sit with founders, leaders, executives, and change makers to explore the challenges they faced, the lessons they learned, and how authenticity became their greatest advantage. And today with me, I have Pandora Saunders, who is the founder of Clarity Business Solutions. Pandora, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks. I'm happy to be here. I'm really excited about
Tell
this.
us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm a single mom. I have two girls who one's 16 and one's about to turn 18. I started in accounting in 1997, which is when I graduated from high school. Worked in some private companies and then went to work for some public accounting firms, got my CPA license. I, worked in the corporate field and then for a CPA firm. And then when I was on my own as a single mom, my oldest daughter has autism and some hearing loss. And so I had a really hard time working full time and trying to take care of her with all of her appointments with the school and with hospitals and things. So I broke out on my own and just did enough work for us to get by and worked with a lot of companies there. And I would contract with different accounting firms to help them out as well. And during that time, we actually started Salish Sea Deaf School in Anacortes, Washington. I think they've moved to Mount Vernon now. But we started this deaf school, and then my daughter with her hearing issues, they're a little different. They're in the brain and not necessarily the ear. So we ended up not really needing to go to that deaf school anymore. And then we moved away. I kept doing accounting on my own. And then I finally got to the point where the kids were old enough that I could start working for another CPA firm again. And so I did that. Worked there for 4 years. And then last year, I decided that there were some problems that I saw in the accounting field that I really wanted to go out and start my own business and see if I could help owners in a better way that I felt like we could in the accounting field. And now we're here today.
I love that. It's truly inspiring. As a single mom myself, I know how hard it is to juggle both because it's a full-time job, especially when we talk about children with disabilities. And so it's inspiring to see that, to know that I'm not alone. And for all the other moms out there, single or not, it's a hard job, right? Being a mom, it's the hardest job we have, and more than being an accountant.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
and we see all of the horrible things that we're not doing that we wish we could do. I know I'm really hard on myself. It's like, oh.
We are our own worst critic, for sure. And so it's really inspiring, and I respect you a lot for what you've built. I think it's amazing. And just the positive energy that comes with you. You could just feel it through. And that's the kind of, glass half full mentality that I think we all need to strive for. You've already educated me so much on the finance side, things that I haven't thought about previously. And a question that came to mind was, what was the moment you realized business owners weren't actually getting what they needed from their accountants?
I don't know that there was one specific moment. It was more a progression throughout my career. I've been in the accounting field since 97, so for almost 30 years now. And as I worked with more and more business owners at the CPA firms that I worked at, it became more and more clear that we were giving them financial statements, but they didn't really know what to do with them, especially newer business owners. So they could see that we had, either made money or lost money, but they didn't know necessarily how to fix it, or they thought that there was something contributing to it that really wasn't when we dug into the numbers. And a lot of CPAs, they don't actually go through and analyze the financial statements with you. What they do is they'll hand you your financial statements and say, there, done, I've delivered you what you wanted. And it just became more frustrating for me because I saw the business owner struggling, and I hate that. It's like, I've got all this great information that I just created for you, and it can help you. And I want to show you how I can help you more with it. And in my prior jobs where I worked at CPA firms, you weren't really allowed to go beyond that because that's getting into CFO services. And so now that's one of the big things that I've tried to help business owners with, is being able to interpret this into usable numbers and help them progress and grow.
Yeah, that's really important, right? I mean, a financial statement's great. A lot of us will just look at it and say, okay, but to educate and help them make better decisions really does make a difference.
Mhm.
Um, so, I know you had mentioned that you wanted to get more from an accounting partner, and that's really why you opened Clarity Business Solutions and went out on your own. But what does that actually mean to you in real terms?
So getting the most means that you're getting, within a few minutes, you can open up a dashboard or financial report and see the numbers that matter to you so that you can make decisions. Because you're going to grow as your business grows, and the numbers and the KPIs and the information that you need is actually going to change over time. And I can't create a dashboard for one owner that's going to work perfectly for the other owner. It's got to be specific to you and where you are at on your journey. And so when your accountant can pull those numbers easily for you and have them readily available, then that is a much better partnership than just here, your financials, pull out what you need.
Right. And so you're really tailoring it to your customer, and you weren't
Yeah.
really seeing that
Mhm.
before.
No, I haven't really seen it from CPA firms, which is interesting. You'll get it from your CFOs because they look at KPIs and things quite a bit. But for some reason, there's been this gap with financial accountants. The people don't need to go out and hire a full CFO just to get some KPIs and be able to evaluate this. The CPAs have the knowledge. They know how to
Yeah.
advise you on this. I don't understand why we kind of leave this gap, because it doesn't help people realize the value of what they're getting from us. And that's so important, especially when you're doing like value-based pricing and stuff. Are you getting the value for what you're paying us to give you?
Now we talk about like the CPA and the CFO, right? And how we have these disconnects.
Mhm.
And this is human behavior, right?
Yeah.
I want to know, from your perspective, how does authenticity or lack of it show up in the accountant client relationship?
It's amazing how many accountants they get stuck in, they have to produce these financials and these deliverables and give them to you and be done with that. That's their task for the month. They're very task oriented, but they don't really sell themselves that way. They go out and say, we're going to give you these great financial statements and you're going to be able to do everything with this. And I think there's a big gap there, because you're saying you're going to help them, but then you plop down these financial statements and you don't really help them understand it. And I think when you're really concerned about people and you really do want to help your clients, then you're going to be bridging that, and you're going to be looking through it and saying, hey, I noticed this. Let's discuss it. Let's dig into it a little bit more. Where are you feeling lost? How can I help clarify this for you so that you can get more out of it? Do you
Mm.
feel like these are valuable? Why or why not? How can we fix
Yeah.
them? So it's really just authentically caring about your clients and what they're getting each month, and are they getting the value that they expected to get. And I just don't see that in CPA firms too often, and it's sad because we can help in so many ways these poor business owners. Mhm.
Yeah, I love that. I see that all the time. And it's a very dry relationship. Remember, I had told you in the very beginning, it doesn't seem like they care. It is very task oriented, but my, what a difference it would make to have such a wonderful relationship, very trustworthy relationship with your accountant, and know that they have your best interests and they're not just feeding you information from a book, because that's often what it feels like.
Exactly. Hmm.
And I can already tell that working with you is absolutely awesome, just because you have such an amazing personality. Like, that was the first thing I said to Pandora when I met her. I'm like, you use exclamation points when you write, like, you have energy. And you don't find that often, but it makes such a huge difference. I would pay more to do business with somebody that I know actually cares versus the latter.
I
Um,
agree. Mhm.
yeah, no, thank you for that. And well, why do you think so many people avoid really looking at their numbers honestly?
When you're first starting out in business, it can be because of a couple things. it's just daunting. You don't really know what you're looking at. And it's just overwhelming when you try to look at it. Sometimes there's problems, and they know there's problems. They know, especially if you're starting your business, you're going to be losing money, and you just don't want to face what you're actually losing. Or that there's labor utilization problems, and you just don't want to face the problem or see the numbers. It's there. You want to work on it. So I think a lot of it is avoidance of a problem, or just being overwhelmed a lot of times. And that's what your CPA should be helping you with, is helping you develop a plan so it's not so daunting to look at. They explaining the financial statements so that they don't seem so complex. Um, yeah, so
I
why?
I would agree with that.
Mhm.
I would agree with. I think emotions play a big role. I mean, I would, get very anxious thinking about something like that, right? I mean, me out on my own now, I can relate to a lot of those feelings. And
Mhm.
so it kind of ties into my next question, but where do I mean, emotions play a role there, but where do you most often see them interfere with smart financial decisions?
So entrepreneurs are very interesting because they're very impulsive. They're like cats chasing the laser pointer, where they go after the next great idea, and you know they constantly have new ideas coming into their head. So there's a lot of spontaneous decisions that are made, and they really have to learn through some bad mistakes how to rein those in quite a bit. And
Yeah.
there's great advice out there for how to do it. Like, I like Alex Hormonzi's list. As you come up with ideas, you put it on the list, you wait a little while, then you go back and you review your list. And a lot of times it's like, wow, that was a dumb idea. I'm glad I didn't do that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a good one. Maybe we'll look into that one more. So there's a lot of just impulse decisions that are made. There's also just poor planning, or they like to justify the expense. Like, they'll try to work a problem around where it's really not going to work, but you try to justify it and say, no, 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 I can get it to work. And then, it doesn't, because it wasn't actually based on a sound decision making. So I see it, a lot with that, where it's just you're rushing in way too fast to things.
Yeah, so you mainly see it when you're launching these businesses then, and mainly in entrepreneurship versus these bigger corporations who are
Correct.
probably
Yeah.
being told what to do, right? So that they don't make those kind of decisions.
Yeah, and it's, I wish I could say it was just when the business started out with entrepreneurs, but it's not. So they've actually done studies of an entrepreneur's brain, and it's very different than like a manager's brain, where they're more, I think it's cognitively flexible or something is what they call it, to where they take all these risks. They're much higher risk takers than other people. And so they're willing to jump into all these different things. So it doesn't just end when they start a business and get going a little bit. They actually keep doing it. And you'll see serial entrepreneurs where they sell it and then they start another business adventure, because it's how their brain is wired. They just keep going with it. So those who
Oh,
have learned to
wow.
structure themselves do a little bit better and kind of rein in their jumping into different things.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Well, a lot of what you're saying is bringing me back to me.
There you go. You're
I'm like,
doing the
she's
same
right.
thing.
I am a big risk taker and I should probably rethink this.
Yeah, no, just, be careful. We
No, you,
need
you bring up
people
a
like
lot of great
that.
points. Yeah, we do,
Mhm.
right? We need a little bit of both. Otherwise the
Mhm.
world would be boring. But you mentioned this the second time I heard Alex's name this week. What book did you read or would you recommend?
So he has 4 books, but it's actually not, I actually haven't read any of his books, to be honest. I follow him on YouTube for the most part. Him and his wife, Layla, they have really good business advice. And so they started out with basically nothing and started launching gyms and then going into managing gyms. And now they have all sorts of entrepreneurial things that they do. But they've learned the hard way how to do it right many times. I think he said he's lost everything like twice. So he's been down the hard road and then rebuilt, and he has down very well the principles that you need to really get a business going. And so I always recommend that people follow him. They're hardcore. Like with me, with two daughters, it's a lot harder to do the schedule and stuff that he's talking about because I have to find that balance. And you have to kind of balance it whatever your life is. But they have very sound advice that you want to follow.
Well, so looking back at your career, what would you think the biggest shift you've seen in how businesses like should think about their accountant, but they still often don't?
Mhm. So you should be expecting more from your accountant than what you're getting. A lot of times, when I first started working at a CPA firm, they would get the bank statements at the end of the month, and we would just go through and categorize the bank statements and then send them financial statements in a blue folder so they felt like they were receiving something. And we had just started kind of getting into the whole electronic phase where you could get into banks online. It was very different back then, where you're really just sending them statements through the mail. Now we get everything instantly. You should be able to get the financial statements out a lot sooner at the end of the month, and you should be able to
Yeah.
pull all sorts of dashboards and stuff electronically that tie into your software. You should have whatever information you need pretty much just at your fingertips. And you should expect your accountant to do it because your accountant is the one who reconciles and checks the numbers and makes sure that everything's coming through correctly. So I think the expectation on how fast you get it and the format that you're getting it has definitely changed a lot.
So it sounds like you're really making that shift for people. You sound very passionate about what you do, and that is everything, right? Can you tell us a little bit more about Clarity?
Sure. So I started this exactly for this gap because I've seen a lot of CPA firms still in the old mode where they're just pumping out those financial statements. And I just got frustrated with not being able to help my clients more. So Clarity, we create a dashboard where you can go in and you can see your numbers that we tailor to you because, like I said, you grow along with them. It's going to be different for every business. And it can be through Google Sheets that we do it, or it can be through Power BI. We adapt to your business and whatever tech that you're using in order to get that to you in a usable fashion that you can look at within a few minutes and then make decisions off of it. And it's done throughout the month. So you can see updated labor utilizations. You can see one of the big ones is project tracking. So you can see if you're using too many hours on a project and you can adjust mid-month versus waiting until the end of the following month before you ever see what that is. So I really love this new business and how I'm able to go in and actually just serve the clients and tailor it to them and be like, oh, I've got what we can do in order to fix your problems. I love fixing people's problems. And yes, I am
Yeah.
the accountant who loves my work. Love my numbers.
Yes, I love that you love them. I'm like I'm the opposite of numbers, but I wish that I could love numbers.
Yeah, I like it when it all ties out and looks beautiful. And it's always the biggest compliment for me when the client is like, wow, this is great. It's like, yes, job well done.
That is so awesome. I could totally relate, right? But in my field, how do you
Mhm.
feel about entrepreneurs or businesses just starting out that do their own accounting? Dun dun dun.
Yeah. So I think there's something to be said for starting out doing it yourself, trying to save money. And, I definitely don't fault anyone for doing that. I think, that's a good way to save money at the start. However, there is information that when you put it in, it has to be put in correctly in order to be reported on your taxes correctly. And I've seen a lot of people who just not understanding how it's supposed to be treated will put it in the wrong place. So you have to be careful with that and make sure somebody is at least reviewing it annually before they put it onto your tax return. But even more importantly, as you grow, the balance sheet itself has many accounts on it that an accountant, not just a bookkeeper is generally more of a data entry person. But at a higher level CPA is somebody who's going to go through the accounts that you may not understand what they are on your balance sheet, and they're going to make sure that those are correct. And if they're not correct, there's a good chance that you're profit and loss statement is not correct. And so you're going to be making decisions off of numbers that aren't correct. So it's very important
Mm.
to have a partner in the accounting field who's reviewing it and making sure that you're where you need to be so that you can make those correct decisions going forward.
Yeah, that's sound advice. It looks like I'm going to be giving you a call after this, Pandora.
For sure. We'll get you set up.
I love it. I love it.
Mhm.
There was one more thing that I noticed. Something we talked about, that you do professional speaking. Can you elaborate? Like, what type of topics do you speak on? Are you available to speak?
Yeah, so I love speaking. My keynotes talk is entrepreneurs are crazy, and that's why we love them. And it literally goes into the brain scans and how they have different brains than your normal manager who works for someone. And there are traits about entrepreneurs that really do make them look crazy compared to everybody else. Like there are people who will have 9 failing businesses, and then on the 10th they actually succeed. Well, honestly, after 2 or 3, most people are going to be like, dude, you're crazy. What are you doing? Just go get
Yeah.
a stable job. So anyway, so it goes into like all of these things that make them crazy, and it just makes them fun people to work with. But I also do speeches on leadership. That's become a passion of mine. As I've seen, like I said, I've worked with many different accounting firms where I've contracted with them, and I've seen what works and what doesn't work, and it's really gotten me interested in that area. And so I've gotten into leadership quite a bit. So I speak on that. I also speak on different financial topics like cash flow or other KPIs and stuff that would be of interest to different business owners as well. So yeah, I'm available, and I have a contact form on my website if you're interested, and we can discuss what your needs are.
Well, there you go. I think I would actually personally love to hear your keynote on the entrepreneur and the brain scan. So if you have
Yeah.
anything, send it my way, or at your next keynote, let me know. But I do find that very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It's I never even stopped to think, right, that you could do a brain scan and figure that kind of information out, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
pretty funny when I saw it. I'm like, yes, we knew there was something different.
Right?
Yeah.
We thought there was something wrong, but we'll just call it different.
There you go. You should see the accountants in the background working with some of these guys. Like our lives are boring as accountants, and so we love the drama that these guys bring to our lives.
Really? Okay, so
Yes.
you guys are like gossiping in the background, like, oh my God, did you see that how about solopreneurs now?
Yeah.
That's
Should I
like,
admit to this? What happens in the background with your accountant? No.
right?
I've been
There's
in
always
rooms.
like a break
Yeah,
room
I've been
talk.
in rooms where like their faces are melting off and their eyeballs rolling under the table, and I'm like, dude, calm down. This is normal,
That
But
is hilarious.
yeah, when you have people who are putting like $1 million into their business a year, and you're just like, why are you doing this? Like, it's you have a
You
very
could have quit 5 years
stable.
ago.
Yeah, I know. But you have these accountants who are very, clear cut with numbers, working with people who are doing these crazy things, and it's quite a
Well,
mix.
yeah, so they play it safe, right? And they think logically, A
Yes,
goes to B
accountants.
goes to C. And I can definitely see how I have that entrepreneur mindset, right? I've gone out on my own a few times, and yes, I go from A to Z sometimes,
Uh-huh.
skipping in
Exactly.
between.
Yep.
That's why we need each other. This is the perfect
Yes,
match. I think
it is.
every accountant needs their entrepreneur.
Yeah.
But this has been extremely insightful, really. Are you tied to just Utah, or can you practice outside?
Yeah, all across the United States is where I operate. I operate
Oh, you
virtually. I
can.
actually don't
Okay.
even have an office here. So anywhere in the US. Mhm.
That is good to know. So where can people find you?
ClarityBusinessSolutions.com. That's my website, or they can just email me directly at Pandora@ClarityBusinessSolutions.com.
Thing I keep coming back to after this conversation is how much of a business, especially on the financial side of it, comes down to honesty. So not just with your accountant or your team, but with yourself, because numbers don't really lie. But people, as we mentioned before, sometimes avoid what the numbers are trying to say. And I think that
Yeah.
that's where authenticity becomes a real advantage. So when you stop performing as the version of a business owner you think you're supposed to be, and you start actually engaging with what's real, that's where clarity is going to show up. So if there's one takeaway from today's conversation, it's this. Don't just look for an accountant or a financial partner. Look for a relationship where you can, actually be honest, ask better questions, and understand what's really happening in your business. And make sure that they really care, because the goal isn't just better reporting, it's better decisions that are built on truth. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing your perspective. And for everyone listening, this is the Authentic Advantage. Until next time.